Good evening, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining Congresswoman Sara Jacobs' live telephone town hall this evening. My name is Robin, and I'll be moderating the call tonight. Congresswoman Jacobs hosts a town hall every month that rotates in terms of format, day of the week, and time of day to ensure that everyone in the community has an opportunity to join one of these events. Here's how tonight's town hall will work. Congresswoman Jacobs will provide an update about her work in Washington, and then she'll answer your questions. This is a live, interactive forum, and we'd love to hear from you this evening. We plan to take as many questions from constituents as we possibly can. If you have a question this evening, please press *3 on your telephone keypad at any time, and you'll be placed in line to speak with a member of our staff. A staff member will take down your name and your question. The next time you hear your name, it will be me inviting you to ask your question directly to the Congresswoman, at which time you will be live on the call. If you happen to be streaming this event on the Congresswoman's website this evening, simply type your name and question below the streaming player. We're hoping to answer as many questions as we possibly can this evening, but we will likely not be able to get to everyone's question. If we're not able to answer your question this evening, please leave a voicemail after this event, and a staff member from the Congresswoman's office will get back to you. Again, if you would like to ask a question this evening, you can press *3 on your telephone keypad at any time, or type your question below the streaming player. In addition, if you'd like to subscribe to Congresswoman Sara Jacobs' e-newsletter to keep up with regular updates on her work, you can press 1 on your keypad. Again, press 1 on your keypad if you'd like to subscribe to the Congresswoman's e-newsletter list. Now, without further delay, I'd like to turn the call over to Congresswoman Sara Jacobs. Congresswoman, the floor is yours, ma'am. Please go ahead.
Well, thank you all so much. Hi, everyone. It's so great to have you on the call. As you know, as Robin mentioned, we are holding town halls every month, and we try and do them in different formats at different times to make sure that everyone who wants to is able to participate. Last month, we hosted an in-person town hall in El Cajon, and next month, we'll have a virtual town hall. So keep an eye out on my social media pages for those details. They are coming soon. So right now, the biggest update is that Republicans in Congress are working on passing their budget through reconciliation. And I say Republicans because obviously they're in the majority of the House and the Senate and are in the White House, but they're also using this process called reconciliation so that they don't need any Democratic votes to pass it. So they are not working with us at all. If enacted, this budget would be the biggest wealth transfer in U.S. history from low and middle classes to the rich. It will cut at least $600 billion to Medicaid and CHIP, the Children's Health Insurance Program. And this will be really impactful for families in San Diego. 1 in 4 people in San Diego County rely on Medicaid, or as we call it in California, Medi-Cal, for their health care. And combined with the expiration of the enhanced ACA marketplace subsidies, this will put 14 million more people uninsured in this country. They are trying to say that this is just about putting in a work requirement, but the fact of the matter is that work requirements don't work. In reality, all they do is create more paperwork for people and lead to massive coverage losses because of the red tape without actually getting any more people to go to work. This bill will also be the largest cut in food assistance in history. So they are cutting SNAP, or what we in California call CalFresh, by about 30%. Already, these benefits are only about $2 per person per meal, which we know is not enough to get by in high-cost San Diego. And their plan would shift more costs to the states, making the states choose which programs they're going to cut in order to continue paying for SNAP. This budget also cuts $350 billion for federal programs that help to make higher education more accessible and affordable, and eliminates subsidized loans for undergrads, requires students to pay interest on loans that accrue while they're in school. It introduces new and updated repayment plans that increase payments for the lowest income borrowers, and it changes enrollment requirements for Pell Grants that would force recipients to take on more courses or see reduced award levels up to $1,500 annually. It also extends the Trump 2017 tax cuts, which exploded the deficit. It will give millionaires a $68,000 tax cut and give households in the top 0.1% a $300,000 tax cut, while raising taxes or doing nothing for 33 million working-class households. It expands the pass-through deduction, which is how a hedge fund and private equity managers are able to pay less taxes. It will also increase the estate and gift tax limit to $30 million for married couples, a windfall for wealthy heirs, and it creates a new mechanism to avoid capital gains. So the committee one of the committees that I'm on, the House Armed Services Committee, we had a piece of this reconciliation bill. We were the only committee that actually increased our budget. We passed a $150 billion increase to the defense budget, which will push the total defense spending above $1 trillion for this year. I voted against it because I don't think it is a good use of taxpayer dollars. I think that we can fund our defense needs through the existing already very high defense budget. And I actually introduced an amendment that would prevent taxpayer dollars from being used for Pete Hegseth's makeup studio at the Pentagon, and every single Republican voted against my amendment. So look, we can have a lot of discussions about how to make government more efficient, how to reform these programs. I have been working on that for a long time. I feel very strongly that we need to make government work better. But that's not what this is. This is a gutting of government, and this is punishing working class and middle class people in order to benefit upper income earners and big corporations. So the best thing we can do to stop this budget is to share our stories, is to humanize these so it's not just numbers on a spreadsheet, so that people understand the real human impacts. On my website, sarajacobs.house.gov, I have a portal where you can put in your stories. Please do that, because I need your help in showing what these cuts are going to do to my district and to people all across the country, including in Republican districts who are going to be hurt by these policies. So thank you all again for showing up here. This is one of the most important things you can be doing. This is what democracy is. I'm really looking forward to taking your questions. I'm happy to take easy questions, hard questions. Marjorie Taylor Greene is my colleague. There is nothing you can say to me that will offend me more than what she says, so don't worry about hurting my feelings. I think it's really important for us to have this dialogue. So I will now turn it all back over to you, and remember, press *3 if you want to ask me a question, or if you're watching online, type it into the streaming player. So Robin, back over to you for the first question.
Absolutely. Thank you. First question comes from Joshua. This is a question submitted online. Joshua says, if Republicans successfully cut Medicaid in this disastrous bill, it has been reported that those cuts won't go into effect until 2029. If the bill is passed, could a future Democratic House majority reverse those cuts before they take effect?
Joshua, thank you for this question, because it actually goes to the heart of what Republicans are fighting amongst themselves about right now. So the so-called moderate Republicans, the Republicans who are going to have tough elections, who are in districts that largely have a lot of Medicaid recipients in their district, don't want these cuts to go into effect till 2029 because they know that will be after the next two elections. The hardline Republicans, who are worried about the deficit, in some ways rightly worried about how much this bill is going to increase the deficit, want these cuts to go into effect next year because they want the cost savings as soon as possible, and because they know that a Democratic House majority with the Democratic Senate and the presidency could reverse these cuts if they don't go into effect until 2029. So that is actually one of the key sticking points that Republicans are negotiating amongst themselves actually tonight. They're literally in a meeting right now as we speak about this very topic. We are still waiting to see exactly what that bill will end up doing if they're able to get it passed. But yes, if they do try and put it into effect later, we will do everything we can to reverse it so that people are not actually subject to these really harmful cuts.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Next question, also submitted online, ma'am, from Betty. Betty says, what are Democrats doing to try to get Republicans to side with them on some of Trump's outlandish proposals and executive orders?
Another great question, and goes to something that is very frustrating to me, because when we are talking about the constitutional crisis right now, to me, it's both that the Trump administration is not abiding by court orders, but actually, more importantly, it's that Congress and my Republican colleagues have given up all of their power to the executive branch and are not even fighting for what is rightfully in Congress's power per the Constitution. So I've been having a lot of private conversations with my colleagues on the other side of the aisle. Many of them privately will say that they are really unhappy with what's happening. So far, we haven't gotten them to do so publicly. And so what we really need is public pressure. We need them to be hearing more from folks in their district who are going to be harmed by these cuts and harmed by what's happening than they're hearing from the people who voted for Trump and are happy with what's happening. And so that's where you all come in. That's where your stories are so important. And, we talk a lot about, what we can do in this moment. The best way to break through the mis and disinformation is with real human conversations that you are having with people who trust you, right? Like, trusted messengers are the way we break through this sort of propaganda machine. And so the more you can be having those conversations with people in your life about the real human impacts of what's happening and why it matters to you, I think the more we will start seeing my Republican colleagues stand up.
Thank you, ma'am. Next caller is Kevin from La Mesa. Kevin, you are live on the call with Congresswoman Jacobs. Please go ahead, Kevin.
Yes, ma'am. Good evening. I'm calling in regards to the executive order recently signed, basically abolishing union protection to the federal workforce, basically violating the FLRA and Civil Service Act of 1978. Is there anything that you or your fellow congressmen and representatives are doing to reverse this?
Yes, thank you for the question. So there is currently a bill, a CRA resolution, which is how Congress can void executive orders, basically a Congressional Review Act resolution that would void this executive order within 60 session days. I'm an original co-sponsor of this resolution, and we already have about 200 House Democrats on this. Historically, there's been bipartisan support for labor rights, and especially for federal workforce labor rights. I know that right now a number of the unions are working on a court case and prepping for the Supreme Court. But we are fighting hard because we are not going to let an executive memo erase half a century of bipartisan labor rights. Congress has the power of the purse, and we are going to keep using it as much as we can to make sure that federal workers' voices are at the table.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Once again, folks, if you're just joining the call, you can press *3 if you'd like to ask a question this evening. Congresswoman, next question comes from Valerie of Serra Mesa. Valerie, you are live on the call with Congresswoman Jacobs. Please go ahead.
Hi. Thank you for having me. So I'm just wondering, what can we do, as a people? I mean, I've been to protests. I think that we have the numbers to rise up against this blatant corruption. Like Congresswoman Ramirez, really put it to Kristi Noem. And I want to see more of that, put it in their face of we want resignations. We want this to stop. How can we do more of that? What can we do as a people instead of just showing up to protests?
Well, first of all, showing up to protest actually is really important. I know that sometimes it doesn't feel like that in the moment, But actually, we know from other countries that the more we're showing up for, those kinds of public displays, it really does matter. Many of you know that before I worked in Congress, I worked in post-conflict stabilization and post-coup transitions. And one of the things that we know from other countries that have experienced democratic backsliding is that if we are able to build a broad-based pro-democracy, small d, pro-democracy movement, we actually have a pretty good chance of getting a better democracy on the other side of this. And so I think, while it may feel like each individual action doesn't feel like it's enough, actually showing up does really matter a lot. Now, there's much more we can be doing also. So showing up to those protests is really important. Doing kind of the community organizing work of talking to the people in your life and building those connections and those real community organizing structures. So I was just reading this book about protest movements, and basically what it says is that before social media, the way you knew that a movement had a lot of strength was because it could bring a lot of people to the same place at the same time. Because in order to disseminate that information, you had to have those kinds of organizational structures and that decision-making processes. But now with social media, actually the easiest thing is to get people in the same place at the same time. You can just post something. And so almost everything's flipped. Whereas before that big mass march was the culmination of an organizing movement, now that's the start of an organizing movement. And now after that, we need to do the hard work of building up that institution. And so telling your story, talking to your friends and neighbors, talking about the real human impacts to the people in your life really does matter. And there are some other things that you can be doing, but this is on my official side, official congressional office, so I cannot tell you them right now. But find me in a different forum, and I will make sure we get you all of that information as well.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Next caller is Jim from San Diego. Jim, you're live on the call. Please go ahead and ask your question.
Okay, my question is, what social events such as meals and sports regularly happen to increase fraternizing between Democratic and Republican members of Congress?
Well, Jim, thank you for asking this question because it gives me an opportunity to brag about my stint on the congressional softball team. I am one of our star players, not because I am any good at sports, but because I am significantly younger than any of the other members on the team. I am our pinch runner, and I, in real world, am not fast, but in Congress world, I am very fast. So the congressional softball team is a bipartisan group of female members of Congress who plays against the press. It is fun. It is bicameral, so both Senate and the House, and bipartisan, and it's just a really fun way to get to know my colleagues in a different setting. We also have other ways that we are getting to know each other. For instance, just recently, the Armed Services Committee did a bipartisan retreat in Austin, Texas, where we looked at different ways DOD does procurement and what kinds of acquisition and procurement reform we could potentially propose in a bipartisan way in this upcoming National Defense Authorization Act. But there's also, sometimes it's really hard to engage in a bipartisan way. We are constantly working and often siloed to our sides, and then the second votes are done, we get on airplanes and we fly home. And so one of the things I've actually been working on is trying to find more opportunities for us to be able to socialize just as humans, because the fact of the matter is, no matter how much we disagree with someone else, we have to work with them to get things done here, and there will always be at least one thing you can agree on, even with the people you think there's nothing you can agree on with. And that's something that I spend a lot of time really trying to find and to cultivate.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Folks, again, if you would like to ask the Congresswoman a question tonight, please press *3 on your telephone keypad now or at any time during this call. And if you're enjoying this update and want to stay aware of what the Congresswoman is working on, you can press 1 on your telephone keypad to subscribe to the Congresswoman's e-newsletter. Congresswoman, next caller is Arjun from Sarah Mesa. Arjun, you are live on the call. Please go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, Congresswoman Jacobs. I'm curious about what you're doing to grow your leadership and your voice, even if you are out of power as a Democrat. You do come from a strong Democrat district, and I think you have a great opportunity to lead the messaging charge from that regard.
Well, thank you, Arjun. I appreciate that, and it's so nice to know that I have support from my district to try and lead in this moment, because it's something I spend a lot of time thinking about how I'm going to do. So one of the things that our office is really focused on is how we get our message out to people who don't normally see themselves as part of politics or part of government, or don't really feel themselves represented, right? I'm one of the youngest members of Congress, as you all know, and so I spend a lot of time thinking about, in particular, how we reach out to young people. And so if all of you are not following me on my social media, I hope you do. It's Rep. Sara Jacobs on all the platforms. But we're doing a lot to try and figure out new creative ways to outreach to people. And if any of you have ideas or want to collaborate with us on our social media, please send us a DM, because we're always looking for creative ways to do it. But it sounds kind of silly, but I do these videos where I'm literally doing my makeup and talking about policy, and they are some of our most watched videos. I also do ones where I cook. I'm not a good cook, but I think, it's fine. I pretend to cook not well, and I'm actually cooking, but it's just not very good. And talking about policy and just trying to find all these new different ways to reach people who are tuned out of politics and wouldn't normally tune in to a politician's social media, but maybe might tune in because they care about cooking or they care about makeup or whatever else. There's also a group of us younger members who are constantly talking to each other and working together and trying to figure out how we can be doing this better and moving things forward. And so I'm working with the other young members on how to do that too. But like I said, if you all have ideas on what we can be doing, if you have events or community meetings or anything that you would like me or someone from my team to show up to, please let our team know, because this is something we're really focusing on, how to get the message out, how to talk to more people, how to make more people feel like they're part of the system. And we really could use all of your help to do that.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Next question was submitted online, and it's from a gentleman named Lou. Lou says, what is your interaction with the EPA regarding the Tijuana River sewage cleanup? And the second part of his question is, how was your visit to the site with Lee Zeldin and local politicians?
Look, the Tijuana River Valley issue has been going on since I can remember growing up in San Diego, right? This has been a long-term issue, but I'm really proud that since 2020, we've been able to bring home $650 million to address this problem, to build, to repair and build more capacity at the South Bay wastewater treatment plant. I was really glad that Secretary Zeldin, who I know from our time in Congress together, was able to come to San Diego in one of his first few months in office and visit and see firsthand about this issue. And he seems really eager to make sure that we get after this, and that the money that we've been able to appropriate is actually going to be spent, and that this project is going to go quickly, and that we will get this newly expanded and repaired wastewater treatment plant on our side. We also know that a lot of this is going to require work on the Mexicans' part, which is why I spend a lot of time talking to my counterparts in Mexico, why it's really important that we maintain a good working relationship with the Mexicans. And while I know none of this is as fast as it should be, we are finally making some progress on this, and that I think should give us a lot of hope that we might finally be able to get to the end of this and be able to solve this problem once and for all.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Next question, also an online question, ma'am, from Barry. Barry asks, why did you vote against the Lakin-Riley Act?
Barry, thanks for asking this question, and I'm always want the opportunity to explain to my constituents why I voted a certain way. So if you are ever wondering why I voted a certain way, please do call or write our office because I know sometimes it might not make sense on its face, but it's always important to me to explain where I'm coming from. So why I voted against this bill is because, one, it's already federal law that if you're undocumented and convicted of a felony, you're subject to detention and deportation. So that's already the law. However, what this bill does is that it eliminates due process and makes it deportable just to be accused of even nonviolent offenses like shoplifting. And it also creates the ability for state attorneys general to get decisions made by immigration judges and ICE officers overturned, and even ask a court to stop legal immigration from entire countries. And to me, it basically was trying to solve a problem that wasn't actually the problem, because it is already federal law that someone convicted of a felony is subject to prioritized deportation. Rather, what this does is that it would get rid of due process, and that means it gets rid of due process for everyone, because how do you prove if you are documented or not if you don't even have access to due process?
Thank you, Congresswoman. Our next question comes from Rosamond from La Mesa. Rosamond, you are live on the call with the Congresswoman. Please go ahead and ask your question, Rosamond.
I recently received an email that was very confusing. It says it's from the Social Security Department. And it says it's still time to transition your Social Security account so you can continue to access our online services. When I went into it, you cannot complete the whole thing, but then I backed out because I wasn't sure if this was legitimate. Do you happen to know anything about it? I also had several friends and family members ask me about it because they've also received it.
It's a good question, and I don't know the exact letter you're referencing, but you should definitely reach out to my office, 619-280-5353, and one of my staff is happy to connect with you and look into it. And this is also a good time for me to remind anyone that if you have an issue with any federal agency, Social Security, IRS, VA, any federal agency, please reach out to our office, whether by calling or on our website, sarajacobs.house.gov, because we may be able to do casework and be able to help you get what you need from the federal government.
Thank you, Congresswoman. And I'd like to repeat that number for you, ma'am. That number is 619-280-5353. Next question comes from David of Linda Vista. David, you are live on the call with Congresswoman Sara Jacobs. Please go ahead.
Hi, Sarah. First of all, thanks for making yourself accessible. That's what government is about. I'm 64 years old, and I think the leadership in the DNC is old and rickety and needs to be replaced. Joe Biden's health announcement today is just proof of the pudding. I'm curious as to your opinion about what David Hogg is doing and how we promote a new, fresh leadership in the DNC, because our party is aspirational. It's about the future, not about the past.
Well, David, look, you know that I agree with you because I literally ran on being a new generation of leaders. I am one of the youngest members of Congress, and I truly fundamentally believe that what we are seeing right now with Donald Trump is because the status quo wasn't working for far too many people, and too many people in my party were unwilling to actually look that in the face and recognize it and take ownership over the things that we did wrong in the past. And so I think it's incredibly important that we continue to develop this new generation of leaders. I spend a lot of time talking to young people about how they can make their voice heard, encouraging young people to run for office. I will tell you more about the political things I'm doing in another forum because, again, this is an official side thing. But one of the things I'm also doing is trying to make sure that Congress itself is an entity that young people want to work in. So for instance, I worked in a bipartisan way with Anna Paulina Luna, a Republican from Florida, to get Congress to have parental leave for members of Congress, to have proxy voting when a member of Congress or their spouse gives birth. Because one of the things I hear from a lot of young people when I'm trying to encourage them to run for Congress is that they just don't think they can make this job work with their life, and they're not totally wrong, right? This is an institution that was built by and for old white men, and so there's a lot we need to do to modernize Congress, whether it's getting parental leave, whether it's getting a carpet in the tunnels so we don't fall in our high heels, which is something that I was able to do. From the big to the small, there's a lot we need to do to make Congress more accessible to more younger folks, to make it more representative of the community at large, and that's something I'm spending a lot of time thinking about how to do.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Folks, again, if you just joined the call, it's *3 to ask a question this evening. And if you're enjoying this update and you'd like to stay aware of what the Congresswoman is working on, you'd like to sign up or subscribe to the Congresswoman's e-newsletter, you can press 1 now on your keypad to do that. *3 to ask a question. Our next caller is Tim from Scripps Ranch. Tim, you're live on the call with Congresswoman Sara Jacobs. Please go ahead, Tim.
Thank you, Sarah. And my number one issue has always been the climate crisis, but with this latest thing, I think the Constitution crisis is more important. My question is, we had this illegal organization called DOGE, D-O-G-E, cutting funds from everything. And I get all my health care from the Department of Veterans Affairs over at the La Jolla Medical Center. And I talk to those people all the time because I'm in their clinics. And now they're actually worried about, are they going to keep their jobs and who's getting cut? People have already been cut, and I know it's affecting the level of care at the probably all over the VA system, but certainly at the medical center in La Jolla. And what can you do to, if anything, to stop all of this from happening? I know the Republicans like to say they're supportive of veterans in the military, but they're only supportive of the military-industrial complex, not actual men and women who do the work. So anyway, what can you do to protect the veterans?
Tim, I couldn't agree with you more. One of my biggest frustrations on the House Armed Services Committee is that even as my Republican colleagues are proposing a $1 trillion defense budget, they say there isn't enough money to make sure all of our service members have the quality housing that they need, have the child care that they need, have the health care that they need. And even as they say that they support our veterans, they are cutting funding for PACT Act, that we passed to make sure that veterans who are exposed to toxic burn pits get the care that they need. So right now, where things stand with the VA is that DOGE has said they want to cut around 80,000 workers from the VA. It is currently stuck in the courts, and we are currently fighting that also through the appropriations process that we're going through here in the House. But we're pushing back as hard as we can because we know already it's too hard and too long waits to get the care you need at the VA. The last thing we should be doing is cutting more of the workforce when what we actually need to be doing is investing in the workforce so that we can get veterans the health care that they need.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Next question comes from Monroe of Linda Vista. Monroe, you are live on the call with Congresswoman Jacobs. Please go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, Ms. Jacobs. With California a couple of years recently being with a surplus budget, and all of a sudden now with a lot of the liberal policies that have been put through, now we're at a $12 billion deficit. What are you doing to assure that we don't spend any more money on things like health care for illegal immigration and things of that nature? And when are we going to start looking into things that in Congress they're trying to put through, like the Transportation Freedom Act and the Stop CARB Act, to pull Section 209 of the Clean Cars Act, the waiver California has, because it's obvious that it's been overbloat and the bureaucracy that CARB has caused has been too expensive to run in this country. It's affecting trucking. It's affecting car parts. In the state of California, you even have things like the Jay Leno law being stymied, and it's common sense when we're operating in a deficit. And I wanted to know what somebody, like in San Diego, is trying to do to guarantee we spend the money in the right places.
Yeah, Monroe, thank you so much for the question. So sometimes I feel like it seems like I'm dodging answers when I say this, but being a representative in the federal government, I literally have no say over what happens in Sacramento or what happens with the California state budget or California state laws. So a lot of what you're talking about in terms of the budget surplus and now the budget deficit at the California state level is just not something that I directly deal with because I'm at the federal level. But what I can tell you is that, for instance, the federal law you talked about, I support helping all American workers, but I don't support ending these carbon emission issues, especially those including from inefficient cars, because I think it's really important that we address the climate crisis. As a young person, I know that my generation will be the ones living with the consequences of these decisions longer than many people, and we're already facing the impacts of the climate crisis in San Diego, right? When I was growing up in San Diego, it was October was fire season. Now all year round it's fire season. Last January we had flooding that was once in 100 years, and we are already seeing the change in climate. But I think what your question is also about the deficit, right? And while I don't control the deficit at the state level, I obviously do have a say in what happens here with the federal budget. And it's part of why, not the only reason, but part of why I'm against this Republican reconciliation budget bill, because it will increase the deficit likely by around $4 trillion without doing anything, in my opinion, to help grow our economy. And it's not just me saying that. Many Republicans are voting against this bill because they think it balloons the debt too much. And that's why they're having a hard time passing it. So here's how I think about the debt and the deficit. First of all, if you look across sort of how we got to where we are with the debt as it is, the largest contributors to the current federal debt that we have is one, the Bush tax cuts, the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, the 2017 Trump tax cuts, and then the spending during COVID, which was an international emergency. Now, some of those, I would argue, we shouldn't have spent money on. I was in middle school when September 11th happened, so I did not get a say. But I don't think that was necessarily a good use of our tax funds spending trillions of dollars in Iraq and Afghanistan. The way I think about the deficit now, as I am making these decisions as a legislator, is that to me, it's not whether or not we take on debt, it's what we're spending that money on. So, for instance, if you talk to any business owner, they will tell you that they will take on debt in order to make a CapEx investment that's going to grow their business. And that's the same way I think about our federal spending. We should be investing in things like quality early childhood education that bring $6 for every $1 that we spend. That's a pretty good ROI. We should be investing in preventative medicine regardless of who needs that preventative medicine, because we save $12 for every $1 we invest in preventative medicine, because we are going to have to pay for those medical issues down the road in the emergency room, and it's only going to be more expensive that way. And so to me, it's about what we're spending money on. How do we make sure we're spending on things that have a good return on investment, a good ROI, that grow our economy? And And that is how I think we are actually going to be able to address the debt crisis that we have in this country.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Next question submitted online by Rosalind, and Rosalind asks, when will congressional Democrats issue our Project 2025, solving the affordability crisis and the epidemic of poverty?
Rosalind, this is such an excellent question because I am asking myself the same question and asking our leadership every single day. I am proposing we set up a cost of living working group where we bring the whole caucus together and come up with this plan. I think it's incredibly important that we are not just against what the Trump administration is doing, but actually have a proactive, forward-looking vision of what we want to do. And it can't just be the same talking points that we've had for the last 60 years. We need to actually recognize what the world looks like now and what we need to be doing to address it. And so I think we need a comprehensive plan on universal child care, on access to housing that's affordable, on making sure people can afford to live in these places that they don't need to take on 3 jobs in order to survive. And I'm spending a lot of time using this time to think about what those plans could be. We're going to be rolling some out in the near future. But I'm also working to encourage our Democratic leadership to be thinking as strategically as the Trump administration and the Heritage Foundation had. It's like kind of a dark thing, right? But if you'd asked me in December if they would be getting rid of USAID entirely, I would have told you that you were crazy, and yet now in May, that's what's happened. And so we need to be thinking just as big as they are. Just we need to be doing things that are actually helpful to people, unlike the things they're doing that are harming people.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Next caller is Amira from Springfield. Amira, you're live on the call with Congresswoman Sara Jacobs. Please go ahead.
Good evening, Congresswoman. First of all, I wanted to commend you on holding this and being extremely and well-versed in the topics that you've addressed and how well you handled every question, first and foremost. But my main question was, what are some steps or specific concrete plans or bills that are now the Democrats are generating in the Senate and the House of Representatives to oppose these major cuts to the CDC, VA, and other healthcare systems, federally qualified healthcare systems? And I know this is a question that was asked similarly before, but I also wanted to include the importance of opposing price gouging in pharmaceuticals and insurance companies. What are some bills that are currently active in Congress?
Thank you for the question. And look, while my Republican colleagues are trying to tell you that they are focused on addressing the cost of living, actually, they so far have done nothing that will do that and have barely been able to pass any legislation. So, one of the things I'm really proud of is that in my first term in Congress, we passed the Inflation Reduction Act, which would include provisions that allowed Medicare to negotiate drug prices. It capped insulin costs at $35, and it limited out-of-pocket expenses for seniors at $2,000. There's a lot more we need to do to address the cost of healthcare in this country, right? For a long time, when we talk about access to healthcare, what we're actually talking about is health insurance, but that's not actually enough. We need to make sure that we are actually addressing people getting access to care, not just having the insurance to cover it. And so I think there's a lot more we need to do to make sure that we're addressing those high costs. And, President Trump has said that he wants that he signed an executive order to cap the prices of prescription drugs. He hasn't really done anything to implement that, but that's something that I hope that he does, because it should be bipartisan that we want to make sure people have access to the health care that they need. Unfortunately, we're seeing the opposite right now.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Next question comes from Matt of Scripps Ranch. Matt, you're live on the call with the Congresswoman. Please go ahead and ask your question, Matt.
Hi, Congresswoman. I really appreciate you doing this town hall. and taking the time, and I've actually learned an awful lot about sort of what's going on and what we're doing. So since the election, since Trump was elected this last time, randomly, my Facebook feed has been absolutely blown up with far right. I have no idea why. Far right propaganda. It is from Trump. It is from all of his cabinet, all his departments, but it's also from governors in Utah and state assembly people in Maine. And so I'm not really calling to complain about that. It's a little strange, but what's really got me is the uniformity and the well thought out approach of the propaganda. His sort of devout followers seem to all have the same answers. For every sort of fact, they've got alternative answers. So I guess my question is, down the road, let's say, we take back Congress and we take back the White House. What's the approach that preserves the First Amendment and free speech, but also has some limits on big media giants like Fox and all these new startup media, quote, giants, from really just sort of saying whatever they like without any regard to truth? I know there was the big lawsuit with Fox and all that stuff, but it seems like a big problem, and it seems like they're bringing sort of a really well orchestrated propaganda machine, and just the facts. I know in the end that will hold up, but I'm curious what we're doing now and what we can do about this propaganda. Thanks.
Thanks for the question, Matt. And first of all, I'm glad they're spending their money advertising to you. Let them keep doing it. But in all seriousness, it's a really good question about what we're doing about propaganda. So I'm the ranking member on the subcommittee on Africa on the Foreign Affairs Committee. And so I've actually been looking at this issue of Russian propaganda in particular, but other forms of propaganda in Africa for a long time. And some of the things that we know from best practices from those other countries is that some of the most important things we can do is have messages from trusted messengers, which is why I say all the time, I think I've said probably 6 times already on this town hall, but I will keep saying it, that we need to be telling our stories to our friends and family and the people in our lives, because more information from trusted messengers in real human conversations is how we break through this propaganda. Now, that is not necessarily scalable, so there are other things we need to do. So some things that I think are interesting from the African context is that it shows that one by one rebutting each point they make doesn't actually help, because people don't remember which thing was the right thing and which thing was the wrong thing. They just remember an association. And so actually, rather than, this is my favorite line from one of these studies. I read too many academic studies, but this one had a great line, and it was that you can't counter the fire hose of misinformation with a squirt gun of truth, right? So it's not enough just to try and rebut everything, but rather we need to figure out how we pre-but or help create the framing within which people are getting their information. And a big part of that, to me, is rebuilding trust in institutions and in leaders, because part of why this misinformation and propaganda can flow right now is because there's no one that everyone just trusts, right? Like, people don't trust institutions anymore. People don't trust leaders. And look, for a lot of good reason, right? Like, a lot of people feel lied to about the Iraq War, feel like during the housing crisis, the banks were bailed out and their families weren't. But all of those things over time have eroded trust, including how COVID was handled, right? And like, I am a very informed person. As a member of Congress, I didn't know whether I was supposed to wear a mask or not half the time, right? Like, we've had this trust really eroded. And so, yes, there are some laws we can pass around social media, and those are conversations we're having. But to me, the biggest thing is how do we rebuild trust in institutions and leaders? And a big part of that is having conversations like these where you guys are hearing directly from me, where I hope you know that I'm not just telling you what you want to hear, but actually what we're doing and what I think, but also showing that government can deliver and that everyone has a voice and addressing all of this corruption.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Next question, next caller is Jet from San Diego. Jet, you're live on the call with the Congresswoman. Please go ahead and ask your question, Jet.
Okay. Congresswoman Jacobs, thanks for hosting this meeting. One of the things I'd like to see my local representatives do is, and you may have been doing this and maybe I'm just not aware of it, but somehow spearheading and organizing sort of the protest to what's happening and the policies of Trump. I feel like there's an opportunity to organize things and to get people out to participate in these things, to make a visual statement about the fact that we don't agree with the policies, instead of suffering in silence and just, getting angry at the TV and throwing things at the TV. I would like to see, the congressman, help organize events. And maybe you've been doing that and I'm just not in tune with what's happening. This is not a personal criticism for you per se, but I'm looking to get involved and get out there on the streets and make my voice known. So I'd like to kind of understand what is happening in that realm and if there's a way to get plugged into it.
Well, Jet, thank you for that, and thank you for your desire to engage, because that's exactly what we need right now, right? Part of the overwhelm and frustration and anger that we are all feeling is by design, because they want us to feel this way, because they want us to feel like everything they're doing is inevitable, but actually it isn't. We have agency. We get to decide. Now, this is an official town hall from my official congressional office, and so I'm not allowed to tell you specific ways to engage in grassroots organizing. Find me in another forum, and I'm happy to tell you all of the things that we are doing on that, and we will be able to point you to specific things in those other forums. But, for this forum, I'll tell you about our four-part strategy that House Democrats are engaging in. So the first part of the four-part strategy is oversight, right? We are showing up, we are asking questions. I myself have been to the border, have been to Guantanamo Bay, have visited USAID, Treasury Department, have questioned officials from the administration, both in person at hearings and through letters and other methods, to understand what's happening, but also to make sure they know that we are watching and to get answers. The second, which leads to the second part of the four-part strategy, which is litigation or court cases. Congress doesn't have standing to sue, but we are working with outside partners who do, and part of that oversight is getting answers that can help those litigation efforts. The third part is legislation. So I've introduced legislation that would preserve USAID. I've introduced legislation that would defund DOGE. Other of my colleagues have introduced legislation that would protect the Treasury Department, Social Security, Department of Education, pushing back on the legislation that the Republicans are doing, like this harmful Republican budget. And all we need is 3 Republicans to work with us to be able to get any of that done. And so while we are in the minority and we don't get to control what bills come up, we are trying to make sure that there are real bills that we can point to if any of our Republican colleagues grow a spine and want to actually work with us to be able to push back on some of these things. And then the fourth part of the four-part strategy is public pressure. And we've seen that public pressure works, and that's why I'm emphasizing these stories so much. So please go to my website, sarajacobs.house.gov, and share your stories with me. Sign up for my newsletter where we will be telling you all of the things that I'm doing. You can do that by pressing 1 on your phone. But public pressure really does work, and that's everything from all of the things we're talking about in terms of protests and rallies and all of the grassroots organizing stuff that I can't really talk about here, but it's also sharing your stories, talking to your friends and neighbors. really humanizing what's happening for people and not just ignoring what's happening, but continuing to focus on it and continue to make your voice heard and continuing to show up.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman. Next caller is Jackie from San Diego. Jackie, you're live on the call with Congresswoman Jacobs. Please go ahead, Jackie.
Hi. Thank you for taking my call. I was wondering, how are we going to handle when these Republicans in private speak about how they are so against Trump, but yet publicly they support him, which in turn means that they are not upholding their constitutional duty. And as a Republican, as a Democrat who knows this, it seems like it would be your constitutional duty to call these people out so that they're upholding the law, they're upholding their duty to the Constitution and to the American people. Like, how do we get around this? These weak-minded Republicans, they need to be called out. Their duty is to the American people. They not to Trump. How do we get around this?
It's a great question, and I am as frustrated as you are. I'm constantly trying to push my Republican colleagues. I just did a video calling out 5 of my Republican colleagues who voted for the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act for not standing up when Trump was cutting the mental health funding from that bill that was coming to school districts in San Diego, like the Lemon Grove School District. And so, we'll keep continuing to push, but the biggest thing is for everyone to continue telling your stories and making your voices heard, because the more they hear from their constituents, the more spine they will grow.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman. We are nearing the end of our live telephone town hall this evening. I'd like to thank everybody for taking the time to join us this evening. If we weren't able to address your question, please leave a voicemail in a few moments and the Congresswoman's office will get back to you. You can also send Congresswoman Jacobs an email through her website at sarajacobs.house.gov, or you can also call her office at 619-280-5353. That's 619-280-5353. Now I'd like to turn the call back over to Congresswoman Jacobs. Congresswoman, please, you're welcome to share your closing remarks.
Well, thank you all so much for joining. I hope that this was helpful. Please do reach out if we didn't get to your question or if you have other questions or ideas. I love hearing from you, but mostly I want you to know in this moment that you are not alone. There were thousands of other people on this call with you. They want us to feel like we are alone, but we are not. We have agency in the decisions, and it's going to take all of us working together, and I'm so honored that you all trust me to be your representative in Washington, D.C. Thank you all so much. Have a great rest of your evening.